It's just preparing. And you are now live.
Okay. So the Appropriations Committee is convening to consider amendments to the healthcare bill, which is 965. And so we have Jen Carby, who I've asked her to put the changes into a single amendment. And if you would run through them for us, Jen, that would be great.
Yes, I think I need to confirm with Katie. She's, I think, now back in the document, and I don't want to put it up if she's making changes to it. So let me find out. Let me call.
Okay, Senator Ash, are you in the cloakroom? Senator Ash?
He was there.
He looks very contemplative.
Can you see him?
Yeah.
I did, but now I can't.
I think he's listening to something.
He looks like he's lost.
I don't know.
He's nodding his head at something.
Yeah, he's talking, obviously.
He's talking to the ceiling.
Mm.
Okay, I'm just gonna pull the document up. Thank you for your patience. I think.
Jen, hang on, I'm giving you rights.
Oh, great.
You should be all set.
Okay, great.
All right, so I think every member of the committee is here. Senator Starr, Senator Nitka, Senator McCormick, Senator Westman, Senator Ash, Senator Sears, and myself, Senator Kitchell. So Jen Carby is going to review with us. And then we would make these all, okay. So this is what we have to do is change the amount in the first instance of amendment to reflect the changes that will follow.
Right. So you are down 2.5 million. So that's what this number reflects.
Yeah.
And that's because in the so the first instance of amendment is changing that top line number in section 1. The second instance of amendment is reducing the amount in the hazard pay program from 31 million to 28 million.
And let me explain that, committee.
Okay.
The 31 was the first estimate. We knew joint fiscal was working to refine it. And Chloe Wexler and Steve Klein and probably Joyce have spent a lot of time, and they're now telling us the estimated need is 28 million. So that's allowed us to make some other changes that will be reflected in another bill. So that change is just to reflect what is now the estimated cost of the program.
Right. The third instance of amendment makes some changes in the healthcare provider stabilization grant program. So it takes out that the subdivision on prioritization methodology and puts a new one in that keeps things you had, but adds a couple of others. So the first one would now say that it would consider the impact of the grant amount on the applicant's sustainability. That's what you had, not the applicant's size or its proportion of healthcare spending in this state.
Mm-hmm.
And then, did you want to comment?
No, I think that's just a belts and suspenders. It makes sense. If you've got independent practices, they're small. So it's a way of just recognizing the variability of the different provider groups. So it's, I think it's just a clarifying. So that's why I said I thought it would make sense to add it. That was recommended and I said, fine.
Okay.
And then there's the new subdivision C, which is the degree to which the applicant would use the grant funds to supplement existing patient.
No, we want support instead of supplement. To support.
Sorry, I forgot to
support.
send that change.
Okay. To support The degree to which the applicant would use the grant funds to support existing patient financial assistance programs or to enable the applicant to continue providing services to Medicaid beneficiaries or both.
Mhm.
And then the rest are the same, just move down one.
Okay.
And then the next two are Katie's, and I saw that she is on, so I will let her speak to these.
I am. The next change is to the meals to older Vermonters and other vulnerable populations. This continues, it's a report back. It is still a report back. There had been a reference to Title III that has been removed. There's been clarification throughout where the language had been meals to refer instead to nutrition services. And also there's clarification throughout that this is the population served by the department. So
Okay. This was language that was presented by Dale and asked to be modified to reflect make it specific to the department. And as Katie mentioned, it had just changed and made reference to nutrition services.
We no longer have meals. Would
Yeah,
that
they
be,
do.
would that be nutrition? We now call it nutrition services on wheels?
Yeah, I think so, Dick.
That'll be,
Old people will understand that.
oh yeah.
Well, the people administering the programs understand it. So this is what Dale suggested. And so I think it probably attempts to be, I don't know, more inclusive or more accurate, but that's their recommendation.
It's a
I
phone.
remember when they tried to change the name guardian ad litem without consulting the guardian ad litems. That was, this is a similar effort. Wait till the seniors with Meals on Wheels find out they're no longer getting Meals on Wheels, they're getting nutrition.
Oh,
It's a longer, bigger name, so it sounds more impressive.
it could very well be that Meals on Wheels is more limiting than their, their other nutrition assistance method.
I know, I'm just being,
option. Okay, you're just being Senator Sears.
I'm just thinking of Andy Rooney right now and how much I miss him on 60 Minutes.
Oh, God, did he not? All right, let's go on. Section 15, and this was a rewrite. It doesn't change the money, but the way it was worded, put the financial limit afterwards. So it appeared that someone like me, who could be over 65 and elderly, could qualify for this benefit. So we wanted to make it clear that it was there was a financial test for everyone. Just by virtue of being elderly, didn't qualify. So it really is a technical correction.
this also takes away the list that had been illustrative of the different ways that the money could be used. So the language is gone now.
It just got rid of gratuitous language. And what's the last?
And then the last one is in the public health expenses on state lands. It would increase that appropriation from 2.5 to 3 million.
Yeah, okay. And that is just something that we have negotiated so that we are coming up with an agreed upon amount so that when the bill goes back to the other body, they can concur. So that those are the amendments that I will be proposing. I will ask Senator McCormick.
Yeah, I just need to better understand some of this. What are we doing with the working lands?
We're gonna, that's in the other bill. We're increasing it.
We're increasing it. Okay, so, and then what are we doing with the frontline workers? We're
We're
shrinking
keeping-
that payment?
No, it's just the estimate of the cost has been refined. And so
Okay.
the original estimate was 31 million, and joint fiscal today has completed a more thorough analysis and said the 31 was too high. It would only require 28.
Okay.
So it keeps the benefit and makes no change. All it does is make the appropriation based on the most current and thorough estimate.
But we're keeping the big change that was made previously, down from 60 to,
Yeah.
now it's down from 60 to 28.
Yep. And it's because so many of the workers, those retail workers, et cetera, don't qualify. So, so this is not taking away eroding the benefits at all from what we have here. It's just the cost of the estimated cost of the program has been revised downward. Senator Sears?
Yeah, like other things that we talked about, we still have that 150 million, the 150 million that's not being spent now. If that 28 million wasn't enough and the calculations are wrong, we would be able to add to the hazard pay
Yeah.
to make up for those that
Yeah.
were late getting in or whatever. Because it's a first come, first serve. So I'm comfortable with that, given that if those estimates are off, we can make up for it.
And isn't that figure,
Senator Nitka and then Senator Starr.
I'm just wondering, sure, the fact that we couldn't give it to like the grocery store clerks, was that because of a decision from the US Treasury versus a decision that was made in Vermont?
It's probably a combination of both. We have joint fiscal staff and ledge council staff that listen to all those meetings with Treasury, and there was sufficient additional information and guidance that led our staff to conclude that our more expansive definition of eligible workers would be at high risk of not qualifying based on additional information from Treasury.
Very good. Thank you.
Senator Starr.
yeah, isn't our bottom line gone, that money that was decreased because of the actual or the latest figures from JFO, our overall amount that we're gonna have when we come back, won't it be a little higher?
Well, we haven't gotten to the amendments, so we're doing an economic development. So what did you made on your peanuts, you're losing on your bananas, and I'll go through that in a minute.
Golly.
Okay. So I need a motion to move the amendments favorably as it relates
I'll
to.
move the
this bill.
motion. I'll make that motion.
Okay, seconded?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Senator Nitka.
Do you want a roll or is this just?
Yeah. I just need to have people put their, I need to know what the vote in committee was. So
I'm in favor.
Senator Sears, you're muted. You don't,
For
Raise-
roll calls, because, I missed the clerk. And we might not have another roll call for 6 months.
all right, then we'll
Oh,
call the
don't
roll.
worry, you'll have one in August.
Well,
We're
what's,
gonna put
well,
you right online when you cut about 800 employees.
what would we be doing a roll call on, since this is not a appropriations committee action?
Oh, okay.
You do have to indicate that the committee supports the amendment. That's all.
Did you raise your hand, Senator Ash?
No,
Still thinking.
Don't
Let
think
us
too
know by-
long.
tomorrow.
All right. So I
You-
think
you
that
must-
the committee has reviewed this amendment and supports it
Yes.
on a
Yes,
vote of 700.
yes.
Well, Ash is
See,
still,
you're counted now.
All right. Thank you, Katie and Jen. So you will give that to Secretary Bloomer.
So we're having it edited right now, and then we will get it to you and Chrissy, and I think one of you has to get it
Yeah.
to the secretary.
Okay, all right. I'll look for it. So now we have economic development, and I'm not sure, do we have Maria on or David?
No, we do not. I think they're still working on the amendment, as last I've heard.
All right, well, I'm glad Senator Ash is here. I'm going to go through what will be included in this amendment that is currently being written. Maria Royal has indicated that the number of meetings of the, what is the name of the board, Tim?
When we tried to eliminate the Vermont Telecom Authority, we folded it into the Department of Public Service. And because some people like going to meetings so much, they wanted to keep the board and turn it into an advisory board. So it's like the technology something advisory board that's in DPS. They advise on the connectivity grant funds that go out to help make additional connections of broadband. And this would allow them to meet an additional 6 times during this process of using up the CARES money.
So that's one of the first instance of amendment. The second would be, we've already taken care of the state lands in the bill we just did. A $500,000 increase to working lands, $3 million increase to utility arrearage, and restoration of the money to E911. And then put a cap on the amount of the grants that could be paid to a town and municipality at $750,000. And that was
I'll be very clear about that one. The way the bill's written, the only municipality that would be eligible based on a per capita number for anything more than 500,000 is the city of Burlington. Based on the per capita numbers, in theory, it could seek up to $1 million. The House was concerned about any particular communities taking up such a large amount that there's less available for the smaller towns. So capping it at 750 somewhere, kind of recognizing that Burlington is a 40,000 person city with a lot of demands, but also wanting to make sure there's sufficient funds for everybody else. So that cap affects a grand total of 1 municipality. In the spirit of not being parochial, the only community that it's theoretically negatively affected is my own.
and that would go, I guess, Stephanie, are you on?
I am on.
Okay, so that goes into section, what section of the bill is that?
I think it's 7 or 8. I think that's where the
Yeah,
7.
7. It would go into
What's the opposite of parochial?
Catholic. Catholic, it means universal.
Universal.
That's me
Yeah.
then, Catholic Tim.
Yep, didn't know it.
So David Hall just sent a note about the issue on the reversion of
Yes,
timing. Did you see
Mhm.
that one? It was sent to
No.
you as well.
no.
Oh.
I asked him to speak to you. The way we wrote the language, because we were concerned that if grants, the take up is not at the level that we would appropriate, we wanted to know by September 15th that money had not been encumbered or granted. The way it got written was it had to be spent. And that's what Mitzi, the speaker, was concerned about. And the chair of House Commerce, because the grants oftentimes are for services and support beyond through December. So we needed to look at that language because it did something we did not intend it to do, and that is expect all the money would be spent by September 15th. So we have, I don't know, is David on?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
So if we get to September 15th and the money hasn't all been used, and Burlington, who has employees that a lot of really small communities don't, why wouldn't we give Burlington the full grant amount after the 15th of September if there was money left over?
That's a possibility, but I think that for some of that, if the towns are going to digitize their records, I don't know how those grants, those expenditures would be through December. So I suppose.
But they would make an estimate and they would put in a grant.
I might.
You will get a report on the whole program in I think September. So when you're here, you can make that decision whether or not there needs to be, freeing up other money if there's money in that line item to go out, et cetera. Or if the whole thing is oversubscribed.
I would just say we did the floor for the very small communities. A lot of them don't have multiple employees. Burlington has a different mix, and if there was money left over, why wouldn't we give them the opportunity?
I don't have any problem with that. It's just whether we can
you have a deal.
Yeah.
Well, the House was worried about there not being money left over for everybody else. But at the end of the pot, if there was money left over, why wouldn't we treat Burlington like everybody else?
Well, if we can put in some language that that can deal with that possibility, that would get them up to the full amount based on the $25 per person. I think the big concern was not giving municipalities sufficient time to put together their grants, because some of this would include digitization if they wanted to. So it's not just the salary and hazard, it's other related
No,
costs.
I understand that,
So
but
I
they're
don't
gonna
know.
have, they're
Is
gonna
it-
have to have their grant applications in by September 15th. And if at that point, there was money left over, and Burlington had submitted a grant, why wouldn't we honor it at
Well,
that
let
point?
me go back, Stephanie, look at that language. Does that 15th, is it in there?
I will, let me open it up.
Because there may not be for that particular section, that time frame that they've got to get it in.
Let me find it. I don't have it open in front of me. Here we go.
I know, finding all this stuff. I mean, I suppose we could write something that if in fact this has not all been expended and any municipality that has been capped has expenses.
Yeah.
Right.
So you'd have a 750 cap, which administration could exceed if the sort of application window is closed and it's accommodated within the appropriation type thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Seven or eight.
Dick Sears, while we're waiting, S232, is that ready to roll or no?
Yep, yes, it is. And while we're waiting, I'm just sending you a text about the law enforcement reform bill. That
So,
we've. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I have a proposal, but if David Hall's not on, we're gonna have
David's
to.
on.
Okay.
David's here.
I just got an email from the speaker, and what she was proposing is shall transfer funds that are both unencumbered and unspent as of September 15th, and for which there is not foreseeable demand. I don't know. It seems. Do you have a better way of expressing the same thing, David?
I have no idea what that means. Who wrote that? I mean, I have no idea how you would tell whether or not there's foreseeable demand. I spoke with Representative Marcotte on the phone. To try to understand his concerns. He agrees with everything except that he's just worried that they won't have enough time to spend the grants in the smaller pools if the cutoff date is September 15th. That was his only concern.
And what we're trying to distinguish is not that it has to be spent, but it has to be encumbered. So by the 15th of September, if that's the grants have been submitted, we give the deadline, and there aren't sufficient eligible grants, then we're saying money can go back to the big pot to assist businesses with sufficient time to move it out. So what we seem to be hung up on is the term spent versus encumbered.
I'm confused about the term encumbered in that case, because I don't know how a grant fund can be encumbered other than you've got the agreement, we just haven't transferred it to you yet. Is that not right?
Stephanie, can you clarify that?
Yeah, assuming that if you've made the grant commitment and you haven't transferred the money, then it's encumbered, but it's not spent.
I totally
Um,
agree with that.
But if you have a grant agreement that's gonna have a payment go out in a couple, I mean, like staged a little bit, payment 1, payment 2, it's where you are in actually making those payments, but you would encumber the entire amount against the appropriation.
Wait, so
Senator Ash, do you have your hand up?
No, I was just scratching.
Oh. So the question is there a way to write this because in a way that makes our intent clear, and that is we don't want to scoop money that we know is going to be spent and needed and approved under a grant from September 15th to say the end of December. And that's maybe that's getting into the more fiscal definition of what encumbered means, which to me is it's obligated. It doesn't have to be spent until the end of that grant period.
I think so I think maybe where I'm missing you is what level we're talking about this word applying to, because the way that I've been writing this and the way that all the committees so far have understood it is to mean at the individual level, not at the agency level or the state to the agency or the agency to the, let's say, the loan fund, but rather from the loan fund to the business. And they want to make sure that the loan fund has the money to give to a business until November 15th. That's what they want.
And the appropriation in that case goes to ACCD, is that right?
Yes.
And ACCD would sub-grant it to the loan fund with the condition that the grants have to be made by November 15th. That is encumbered.
But
Even
so
though-
I think the question, I think the confusion then is what do you know on September 15th then? If the community loan fund is saying I expect to get these all, I think that might be where we're trying to understand on September 15th if do we have a really clear window of when applications are in and when the turnaround on the grant from the community loan fund is that the difference, David? That they want an application to be able to come in between September 15th and November 15th and be fundable by community loan fund?
They want the community loan fund to have the money available to give to a business until November 15th.
So that when I hear that, I hear
money,
the application process is
money in
open.
hand and money out the door by November 15th. So I don't know if the encumbered and spent language, I think we're
I think we have to get all the way back to
that terminology.
When the applications are in and when the decisions to make the grants are made. Are we talking about applications coming in and decisions to make grants happening beyond September, between September 15th and November 15th? I think that's the crux of the difference here.
I can only tell you what I know from.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Senator Kitchell. Was the expectation that we would have all the grant applications in and the decisions essentially made by September 15th?
I think this discussion is proving problematic because we want to give, like the loan fund, as much time as possible to process loans and get them out. We also wanted to give sufficient time if you have a window of application for working lands, for example, and say, we want all the grants by X date. And then the ones that we grant that because they meet the requirements for COVID, that's considered encumbered and not available to be used to support other economic, other financial needs. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe September 15th is just too early.
Well,
And then what is the correct date then for that?
I don't know.
Right.
Maybe October 1st, except unless we set a later date, like for the loan fund, which is then they would have to have it, it would revert back after the 15th
of October,
of November.
of November, okay. Well,
So, so our concern was like with the grants at the 75%, you know, if there wasn't sufficient take up, then we would just have that money available to meet the businesses that met the new threshold of 50%. We were just trying to be flexible and responsive to the needs.
So all of the businesses that receive funding under this act are subject to that 50% threshold. Whether it's through the loan fund or it's through ACCD, doesn't matter. That new lower threshold applies not only to all the money in this bill, but also S350 money that is unspent as of August 1st.
Okay.
okay.
Well, maybe we're driving ourselves crazy. The other alternative is just strip it out and deal with it when we come back.
I think it would be good if we could deal with it here. That I think would be better.
Why don't you put, why don't we just put that later date in there if the House will buy that? I mean, it's something the House wanted to do, right?
Well,
No,
I have
they-
to admit, our language saying spent was problematic. We didn't intend that they would ever be able, the person actually, or the business getting the money, or Sevka, the agency, would be able to, we never intended that they would have to get everything out the door by September 15th. We were saying X amount, $5 million had been encumbered as that grant to Sevka.
So it actually says both unencumbered and unspent. So if it's encumbered, but again, I think the confusion is, what does that word mean? And at this point, I don't think there's a common understanding. So I'm just looking for a way to say it the way that you wanted to meet the need that you wanted to achieve.
Income was tied up.
I suppose
Exactly.
we could
Well,
move-
so the reason that word was used because it came from the housing context, and we were talking specifically about things like the VHCB appropriation, and they would have a contract to, for instance, to buy a building, but had not actually spent the money yet, and that's why it was both. It had to be both unencumbered and unspent in order for it to revert. Otherwise, if they had already locked it up in a contract but hadn't transferred the money yet, that wasn't going to revert, and that's the whole underlying concept from which this came.
Okay, how about obligated?
Well,
that's
encumbered.
just another way of saying encumbered in my.
No, but if they didn't understand that, how about obligated?
So I looking at the time, it's already after 2 o'clock. The question is, we've got something in there that requires it to be spent the way we wrote it. And that's the problem.
Okay, let's fix it.
Well, that's why we're trying to do it, Alice.
I know. David,
Oh, can't just say committed.
Look,
So I
I'm
can
going
tell
to,
you that that's not, I mean, from the House's perspective, and I trying really hard not to argue for the House position here. I'm just trying to tell you what I know of their concern, and that is to say that they want that money to be on hand in these subrecipients until November 15th to be able to make grants. So if you say it's uncommitted as of September 15th, that means it's going to revert, and that's not what they want to happen.
I see, okay.
okay. Well,
But this is
What
your
did that-
position.
the
Would they
House
settle for November 1st?
I don't know, Senator. They asked for November 15th.
look, I'm just thinking, how about, you know, why don't, I don't know, Steve Klein is sending me something allowing the 3/4 bill, which September does not work with, and I agree. So maybe we could just change, maybe November 15th is enough time to move it and get it out in a month. If people have got needs and the applications are there, it means that they've got pretty fast turnaround. So maybe we should go for November 15th.
Let's
Okay,
review it when we come back in August.
Yeah, we can see what the take up is. But the November 15th, if it's not, and we'll have to look at what language we want. It has,
So do November 15th with a review when we come back in August.
I don't think we even need to do that. Let's just go with November 15th. And if it's not been, what was the term again?
Income.
Both
David.
unencumbered and unspent.
Okay, well, if it's unencumbered, it can't be spent. So it's just double.
Well, it has to be both because it could be encumbered but not spent, right?
No, you
By
said
that
it was
date.
and, not or.
It's both. The money has to not only not be spent, it has to be not encumbered. It has to be both.
That's true. But my only point, I think, in state
No,
finance is,
It
that
needs to be the or.
if it isn't encumbered, then it can't be spent either. So I don't see any point. We might as well just add both, if that's what people feel comfortable with.
I've got to go over to the floor to report on S-232 momentarily, so.
Okay,
They
But
start.
I'm supportive of the amendment you do here.
all right. So let's go with November 15th. I think, Stephanie, I can't, are you there?
I'm sorry. Yes, I am.
All right, so, and then we will use, if it's, you understand what my thinking is, if you haven't encumbered it.
Yeah.
Inherent
I
in
hear
not
you.
encumbering it, it hasn't been spent.
Yes.
So it's really stating it twice. I don't see any problem using that.
Yeah, the sort of accrual, the accounted, the system should, if you've encumbered it, regardless of if the money's gone out, the balance that should show is the unencumbered balance. And that's the amount that you are saying should sweep out on November 15th and switch
Yes.
to the ACCD pot.
Yeah. Okay, that's what we will do. And we can use both unencumbered and unspent.
I hear
because
your
if-
point completely that you don't really need both. It
No.
started with unspent and then somebody said, well, what about, and then that's why both words stuck around.
So-
But I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you
so-
completely.
Okay, so I realize it's sort of redundant and inherent. If you haven't encumbered it, then God knows you can't spend something that you haven't given to anybody. So we'll change it to November 15th and use both terms, knowing that it's just, it's really
And I need
duplicate.
to, Steph, I need to change that WeLab amount as well. And those are my two pieces.
Yeah, so we need yours. And then there was another amendment from Michael Sorokin on some language around the technical assistance on the, you had sent it to me earlier today. Did you want the committee to look at that? at
Yes,
all?
I
can-
guess,
I can forward it. It was the piece that was directing ACCD to have, like, for the frontline workers, a sort of an appreciation.
oh, yeah.
This is
And that's
Amy.
actually Senator Ash, and it's a separate amendment, and it basically, it's asked ACCD to explore the possibility of restaurants issuing like a discount card or something to people who have received that hazard pay grant. In other words, if you've been a nursing home person working and caring for people, and you got that grant under the hazard pay, have ACCD see if restaurants would be willing to give that worker a discount. It's no money at all. It's just sort of a worker appreciation exploration to see if any businesses are interested in, which oftentimes they do. They'll give a discount for a variety of reasons. So that's what the amendment does. It's a no cost. It's instructive to ACCD to see if there would be businesses interested in giving a discount to this group of Vermonters.
So I know that Damien worked on this. Do you want this
Yeah.
integrated into 966?
No, I think they wanted to introduce it as their own amendment separately. So
Okay.
does the committee have any problem for ACCD to explore it? I know Senator Ash is a sponsor as well as the members of the committee.
No,
So
no,
I'll get up and just say we view it as a friendly amendment. We support it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So then David, you'll just,
I'll do that quickly and I'll send this around.
okay. Thank you very much. And thank you,
Sure.
committee. We'll go back to
So,
the
so
floor.
before you do, Maria Royals here, you want to go through the pieces that are on her and then,
I
okay.
thought the only thing for Maria was to add 6 meetings to 12.
and then we also had to add the $200,000 for E911.
Oh, that's Maria's. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to pull up a document now to look at? See if it,
Yeah, sure.
okay.
This would be all just part of this one
Yep,
big memo,
Yep,
big
I
amendment.
believe so, yep.
Yeah.
So Chrissy has allowed me to share a screen, great. Okay, so yes, this is the document incorporating all of these various provisions. So right now, Stephanie, just correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the total appropriation in H966 is 2,214,200,000.
214 million. Yep. Going up 300. Yeah. Going up $3.7 million. And we'll, the 3 million in utilities, the 500 in working land, and then the 200 for E911.
Okay, great. And so, and that second instance of amendment was, I believe, so Abby Shepherd worked on this. She's not available right now. But this is raising the cap per recipient of the local government cap. Was it 200, I think? Stephanie, do you remember? I'm kind of,
Last night we had no cap at all, and this is instituting a $750,000 cap. She is
Okay.
actually going to work on adding to the prorated section the idea that you talked about just a little while ago. If there's money left over, and I gave her the date of November 15th, then the Secretary of Administration is allowed to issue prorated amounts to any town that over the cap.
Yeah, any town subject to the cap, right?
Yep.
So
Thank you.
That's got to be added. And you've added the 12 times.
that's 12 times for the Telecommunications and Connectivity Advisory
And then
Board.
you've added the 3 million on the utility ratepayer arrearage.
Yep.
why did we have to do that, Jane?
Because we want to get out of Dodge.
What if that's not spent?
We did want to have something about revisiting that in August, but
I mean, that's bad.
well, you know, some of that could be businesses.
Well,
So
I mean, what if the money isn't all spent? Does it automatically revert?
I think there was language, this is something that the House wanted to increase, and they had language, something about, and that something to the effect that we would look at the program expenditures in August. So if we can think about some language simply that would add that August look.
I mean, that-
Would you like me to work on that language? A report back in August about available?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I think that's, you know, utility companies, I really feel bad for them.
Well, the argument is, of course, they'll increase rates on other people.
Well, they could though, if they needed to, if that's true.
Okay, I can work on that. And then you've already spoken about, you're putting in the 200,000 for 911.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. Stephanie, did that cover everything on our list? that
I
gave
believe
you?
it did. I believe it
Okay.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
All
gonna
right.
go back to the floor.
So committee, that is the remaining part of the the package of amendments what we're doing to 966.
Yep.
Okay,
So we go back to the House now, Senate.
I guess we're going back to the Senate, and I guess I get to present another bill.
Well, you did well this morning.